All right. So this one's from Level Cap. This is literally the second time I have to do this, so Twitch chat's going to be making fun of me because we just had an audio issue. But I love the title of this. Is Star Citizen's next update a downgrade? This is the most polarizing patch we've seen in. I can't think of the last time that an individual patch has raged people this much. I don't think that there's that many people that like this patch. The only thing that's coming in is cargo. And I think the question you have to ask yourself is this worthy of... Would players be this upset if it was called 323.2? Right? So, all right, let's watch the video.
I've been testing Star Citizen's next major patch, and it has some big features like new hauling missions and persistent hangars that can function like a home base, complete with fish tanks for decoration. But it's also becoming a...
All right, and this is where it froze on me or whatever. Function like a home base is a huge stretch. Reason... there's no like spawning mechanic there. Maybe you can spawn in your hangar in a like a C8 or whatever, but I'm sure that'll cause a ton of issues. Yeah, I function like a home base is a big no for me. I'm not sure I even understand any of this right now. With the current hangars that we have, with the set dressing that's already there, with the lack of functionality like a home base, with the idea that we know there's going to be player habs that do the same thing, which is literally your home, and we're going to have bases, home and bases. I'm not sure I 100% understand the idea behind this outside of them needing to be instanced for scaling up the game, right? That's the only thing that I really see here out of it.
Controversial update due to the amount of busy work it's adding on top of Star Citizen's...
You're getting hung up on a poor choice of words? Yes, but then I'm not getting hung up on it. I'm talking about the idea of, I think a lot of people that did get upset by the fact that it is not feeling like your home. Right? Because it's not my poor choice of wording. It's not even Level Cap's poor choice of wording. I can't say that. It was CIG's who, showed these incredible setups of things that look like your home and things that look like you could do, but seemingly is incredibly difficult for players to do. And for the people who were excited about decorating their hangars, I don't think even they're happy with the results of this patch.
Already laborious experience.
At least not happy enough.
Let's talk about what's new and if it's truly a fork in the road moment for what kind of game Star Citizen is going to become. Okay, so the first thing I noticed, and you'll notice when spawning into
Omega Icons
3.24, is that there's no longer a city or station inventory that you can just grab items from by hitting the I key. Hitting I will still bring up your personal inventory, but nothing else. Instead, you'll have to go to these inventory terminals that are located, well, kind of all over the place at the moment. They're even located in your hab room when you...
And I've spoken about this a lot. I mean, they should be located in your hab room. I spoke about this a lot. The idea that they're located everywhere is a direct result of them being afraid that we would hate these. But what they don't realize is we don't hate them because they're not everywhere and we don't have access to use them everywhere. We hate them because you have never made a good functioning interaction system ever. Like, that's why we hate them.
Wake up, which is convenient. From here, you'll need to find the items that you want and then drag them from your main inventory UI over into your drawer UI. And once delivered to the drawer, you can then place them on your person. Now, we've known for a while that station inventory was just going to be a placeholder for a different system, but this new system is a bit cumbersome. The extra step of moving items to a drawer and then to your person is just weird, and it feels like some sort of tech limitation that CIG hasn't been able to solve. It ends up being...
But it's not. It can't be. It has nothing to do with tech. It has everything to do with this realism versus fun bullshit.
A little bit more than twice as much work as it was before to equip yourself with gear that you want, especially since a lot of the equipping phase might be a little bit trial and error with seeing what fits and what doesn't. There's going to be a lot of back and forth with the drawer and with your inventory. It's just kind of a pain in the butt. Generally, I don't mind. In fact, I like the terminal interaction, but it's comically laborious having to have the drawer in addition to it. I can only...
Yes. Like, if we were going into the storage access and literally dragging them onto a paper doll. Like if this was the paper doll in some way, shape, or form from this UI menu, and like you split the screen in half, whoops. Did I just turn captions on? No. If we split the screen in half and your paper doll was here and your guns and stuff were here, would anybody complain? I don't think anybody would complain. Right? It's this weird extra step before you get to the old UI that you had before. It makes no sense, man. And I'm kind of with Level. When you're in this menu, it's not that bad. It's not good, but it's not that bad. It's the fact that I have to click everything over. I lose shift click. I have to move to drawer, and then I have to click everything over again. Why?
Only imagine somebody...
And then they spent all the time putting in a search, thinking that was the problem.
Starting Star Citizen for the first time and getting stuck at just how to equip gear and get it from your inventory. And once understanding it, going, why is this like this?
Exactly.
Having played tons of MMOs,
that is the correct response. You just throw up your hands and you go, what? And you wonder why nobody has any confidence in your capability to make a video game. That is what you put into 324. That is the better polish. That's what came out of Squadron 42. That's what we waited years and years and years for. You, like, as a CIG developer, as their community team, as Jared, as everybody who has ever forwardly communicated their frustrations about our frustrations, you got to eat this one. You got to eat everything about this year because you set the bar here, and what you delivered, I can't even show on camera. The bar is so low.
Action RPGs, survival shooters, all that have inventory systems that you need to interact with conveniently, quickly, but potentially even realistically. None of them are quite as obscure as this one. It feels like CIG is once again trying to reinvent the wheel with something as simple as inventory management. Eventually, they'll probably come back around to the realization that the wheel was actually pretty good in the first place. And hopefully,
after wasting so much time,
this is a quick realization and not, 5 to 10 years down the road. Now let's move on to persistent hangers, where you can have a hanger that remembers all the stuff you place in.
I love that he put in the ridiculous sound.
And around it, and it leaves it there, potentially forever until you clean it up. And I should really call it persistent hangers tier 0, which means...
Like this stuff is pretty hard to do, I would say. And I think this is the expectation players had. And I think the results are a little bit different. Yeah, like nigh impossible.
It's the most basic implementation and functionality of this feature. Now
that is more like the experience that I think players are having.
Implementation and functionality of this
right here. All right, yeah, here's all these mission boxes that failed and I don't know what to do with. So let me throw them in the corner.
Feature. Now these hangers are actually pretty cool. Naturally, I brought up some of the first ever rewards that I got in the game, which I haven't seen since I think the original hanger modules from like, I don't know, 10-ish years ago. But I finally got my fish tanks back with Well, no fish in them. I think
Yeah, no
CIG
fish.
may need to do some flare overhauls at some point since these items are very old. It is neat being able to set up a little area that I guess would be my hangout spot, but until they get some weapon and armor racks in the game, the functionality of these areas feel kind of cosmetic at this point.
Well, and they don't snap at all, right? So they don't snap to any sort of like grid or anything like that. There's no way to lock them down. So there's a lot of functionality that they're going to have to do if they want this to be a thing. Now, you just have to ask the question of, does it make sense for them to develop your hangar into your home? I don't think so. I don't think so at all, because your home is going to be a hab or it's going to be a base. It's not going to be a hangar. So what direction do they really need to go with hangars? Hangars are probably more org management. One of the things that they did in this patch is inventory management, right? Being able to bring up a bunch of maybe weapons and armor in a box. Yeah, staging areas is a perfect way to describe it. Things like that for your org mates. So what do I want them to spend time on? I don't want them to spend time on stuff like this. What is a huge piece of the puzzle that's missing here? You guys remember not the original hangar, but the second hangar that came after the original, where there were little dots on the ground. You remember that? And you could choose what ships you wanted to spawn on those dots, and each one of those dots represented a different size ship. That is something I want to see. You open the ASOP terminal, and you actually spawn in 5 ships at one time. And in an extra large hangar, it could do that. 5 ships at once, all come up. Your 5 org mates that are, let's say they're prospectors, 5 org mates, we're all going out and mining. That's what I want to see. That was something we used to have that seemed highly functional for a game like this. And yeah, that's what I would want. Maybe a meeting table, something upstairs, things like that, like org stuff. So I think the main focus that should be at hangars is inventory management, ship management, and like we saw the morphologist video of like possibly crafting and things like that. There doesn't necessarily have to be that way. That would be cool, but the main thing that you would need is to be able to spawn multiple ships at one time. That way, think about cargo hauling missions. Think about if you were doing cargo hauling missions for other players, blah, 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 blah. The biggest thing that I think is missing is the ability to spawn multiple ships at one time. That's what I would want to see. Outside of that, vehicle storage areas. And you kind of get those with not the self-land hangar, but the aero view hangar. You do get a little bit more space to like put vehicles and stuff. That's where I'm at. I don't know where you guys are. If you really want the hangar decoration stuff to be hangar decorations, I think they make way more sense as hab decorations, as base decorations. So that's more what I'm looking for.
But I can absolutely see them being pretty useful down the road. Now, a nice quality of life feature is being able to spawn your ship from within the hangar. The entire floor opens up and a ship emerges on an elevator with flashing lights and blaring alarm systems. And this does look extremely cool, and I thoroughly enjoyed it the first 2 to 3 times that I saw it. However, by the 4th time, I was already thinking, I wonder if there's an upgrade I can make to, speed up this whole ridiculous process. Also, if you call up the wrong ship by accident, which I absolutely did, enjoy your 2-minute round trip of waiting for the elevator to come up and then going back on the terminal and telling it to take the ship back and then bringing the other ship up. It gets pretty crazy, pretty cool.
Yesterday or 2 days ago, I think it was a couple days ago before he posted this video, me and Level had a very long conversation, and it was all about this. Not about the hangar in specifics, but just the patch. And, I'm more positive about the patch than I think 99% of the creators are. So, like, I was telling him the things that I like and the things that I think are good. But, yeah, it's there's not a lot of good
quickly.
You know?
And also, due to the terminal UI not being my favorite, it's pretty easy to call up the wrong ship by accident. Now, if you have a large ship, you will get a large hangar to fit that ship, whether or not you want to call up specifically a large ship. And the large hangars look very cool. The size is impressive, except when you realize that you have to run like half a mile to get to the cargo elevator. The larger hangar layout really doesn't make a ton of...
But you only have to do that once, because ground vehicles are cheap to buy in game. So if you have not paid real money for them, buy them in game, get yourself a ground vehicle, leave one at the freight elevator, leave one at the like the entrance point, and you can get around kind of quickly. But yes, I do understand that. But it's kind of the point of the instance hangar that the distance maybe isn't as bad if you kind of like prepare yourself a little bit.
A sense when it comes to convenience. We're going to need some gray cat vehicles just to drive around them, which might actually be the point. In fact, in the very first hangar modules, that's when they added the original little gray car buggy to get around it quicker because they were so massive. However, the size really just feels like more of a flex at the expense of actual convenience, and I think that's going to get old real quick. In fact,
yeah, and I'm kind of with them on that. One of the things that has really bothered me about this, and the fact that this is why I keep bringing up multiple ships on the pad, is I can't store ships on the hugest part of the area. Like, let's see if
unless you're operating a large ship, I think you would prefer a smaller hangar just so you can get around it quicker. Also, spawning...
Here we go. Let's go back like 2 seconds here. Okay. So your tiny little ship spawns in the middle, right? But I think a lot of us have more than one ship. And when we do eventually play the game, whether you start out with a starting ship or not, you will eventually move into other ships, depending on this economy, which who knows if we'll ever be able to move into other ships. But eventually, that would be the goal, right? And I don't think your hangar size choice should be dependent on, your largest ship long term. It should be dependent on kind of your needs. And I think players are going to want and not want to deal with that up and down, and you can have ships littered all over this pad, and that's it. And when I choose to store an individual ship, the thing goes down, all the other ships stay attached to it, the one that I choose to store gets stored, everything else comes back up. That's what I want to see. When I choose to spawn a ship, I choose the location on the pad that it spawns, and everything else stays, and that ship comes up, right? I want to open my hangar door and see it filled with ships. That's what we would need. That is a persistent hangar to me. Is my ships are persistently there, but they can't be persistently there if every time I spawn a ship or every time I store a ship and the pad goes down, anything that is on it disappears or stores. We can't have that. So going forward, that is my number one bit of feedback for this, is that giant pad, even in a small hangar, that giant square can't be a black hole. It has to be useful. And that's, I think, a big piece of the puzzle that is not working. It just is not working.
On the world's biggest elevator is pretty funny, and then you have to run like half a mile to get to it. Now, speaking of elevators, the new cargo elevator is how you get your big stuff in-game, from the inventory anyway.
I would say this is probably like a 6 or 7 out of 10. It's got a lot of bugs right now, but it's in practice, in thought, on paper, it makes the most sense out of everything they've done.
You use the terminal to access your inventory, move it onto the elevator, and then call it up. Then you see your items there on the elevator and you can move it around and do stuff with it. Cargo containers are supposed to make this process easier, but to get a cargo container to put your stuff into, you have to buy them on a space station, and the persistent hangars are on the planet right now, which is just a ridiculous oversight. CIG.
Nah, I don't think it's that bad. So selling certain things at certain locations, I think, is totally fine. I think level cap's overreacting to this. It's 2 feet away.
Needs to let us buy these containers in the persistent hangars or just give them to us for free. There's already...
I think we should be able to salvage and create them. Since you can create salvage boxes, you should be able to create storage containers.
Way too much running around in this game just to move one item from one place to another, and this is not helping. Also, the current limitation of only being able to buy an 8 SCU size container limits what you can fit inside the container and how many containers you're going to need to fill with stuff to move your things from one planet or station to another.
Yeah.
Speaking as somebody who's played a lot of EVE back in the day, moving all of your items from one station to another to essentially relocate your home base was a common occurrence and something you needed to do a lot, and it looks like Star Citizen could make it even more challenging than it was in EVE. And the downside to this is that it makes players want to sort of restrict their movement more, explore less, and just sort of hunker down in specific locations, which I think would be kind of detrimental considering the amount of artwork and explorative nature of Star Citizen. The gameplay is going to disincentivize players from wanting to partake in all of that. Now,
yeah, I don't necessarily disagree with him, but I don't think it's that hard to add a 32 SCU container that opens. I believe when Level and I covered CitizenCon last year, we thought we saw one, but they might have just been the updated containers that he's using now, and we were super excited about that. So, like, his disappointment is, obviously justified.
now bigger game...
Eve relied on people to move stuff. Star Citizen will never do that, right? So we don't know. We don't know what Star Citizen is yet, but they are now calling their economy player focused. So it is going more in Eve's direction than it ever had before, but we don't know what that means.
Concepts aside, one of the cooler things about these elevators is that they tie into the new hauling missions. There's an entirely new...
more player driven. It won't be entirely player driven like Eve, but mostly player driven is what it feels like they're doing.
New mission tree specifically for hauling, and it is actual gameplay. Finally, this is like the most mission system gameplay we've gotten in, like, I don't know, a year of updates. It's been a while. I ran a few of these missions, and I can say it's absolutely a good starting point for hauling, but it still leaves a lot to be desired and makes me question some of the current design choices. The way it works is you would accept a cargo hauling contract like you would with any other mission, preferably one that starts at your location or at least somewhere nearby. Then
I love how the Nomad went from like absolute dog shit to everyone using it.
You go to the cargo elevator of this location, you call up the cargo that you need to haul, you move it into your ship manually with a tractor beam, then you fly your ship where it needs to be delivered, park it, and then move the containers onto the cargo elevator at that destination, and then lower the elevator and transfer the cargo into storage to complete the contract. It's pretty straightforward, point A to point B with loading and unloading. Though as you gain reputation, you'll gain increased payouts and the cargo hauling sizes required for the missions, where you'll also need a bigger ship to move that cargo. And a lot of the missions take you to new locations like distribution centers and updated outposts on planets, which is a really nice way to get you around the solar system and see new locations. It's actually a perfectly designed system to get you to just see the beauty of Star Citizen from a less aggressive, fighty standpoint. And
but also it's intended to teach you what this factory essentially buys and sells or trades in. And unfortunately, the commodity trading is very hard to understand now. I can't pick it up and figure out, is it possible? Like, there is no commodity terminal that works here, even at a distribution center right now. So, you know, Elliot told us that it's intended to tell the story of the world so we can partake in that story. But yeah, we're still waiting on what Waka talked about a couple days ago, which was, he kind of said the cargo rebalance has been done, but the commodity rebalance was taken out of the patch notes, and it is clearly not done in this Wave 1 patch at the moment. Again, we're Wave 1, still plenty of time there, but it doesn't look like we're going to get that, right, when they take it out of the patch notes. So what are traditional cargo haulers going to do? Are they just going to do these missions and enjoy them for a patch? Probably. That's what I'm going to do, and I'm okay with them not being there for a patch. But are we going to get a 324.1 that maybe has this commodity rebalance in it? Are we going to see it in 4.0? You know, I personally, when it comes to 4.0, don't care if there's any content. It could have zero content. Just prove to me that you can add more players, a lot more players, hopefully, and that we can jump between two systems. Tech. That's it. That's all 4.0 needs to be. 4.1, start adding content, start adding the economy, start adding all those things. I don't care. Get the tech right. We need to stop dealing with so many technical problems while trying to participate in gameplay or whatever, right? Get the tech stabilized and then add the functionality to it, right? 4.0, by the end of it, should be more stable than when you first put it in. And then you could do all this stuff. So I think that's probably what's happening here is, hey, we have a lot of bugs. We have a lot of issues with the cargo system. Let's get that, especially the freight elevator, stuff like that. Let's get that stabilized, and then we can do the commodity rebalance as well. But you got to go right back. Like, they got to go right into the commodity rebalance. We need that badly.
While again, I think this is a good starting point for hauling, it's hard to ignore the fact that it's anything more than just a glorified courier mission at the moment. The list of quality of life upgrades and added features could be pretty long, at least my list would be. Firstly, the mission selection UI does not make it easy to see missions that begin at your current location or how far away the missions need you to go. There's a huge amount of filters and improvements needed for the mission sorting system to just make it easier to go from point A to point B.
And to be fair, and I gave some of this feedback, and I heard it was coming a couple days ago. They did change the description of the missions to let you know that they're like, because sometimes they're very weird. Is that a mission that pays 5K? There might be two missions that pay 5K, but one of them is like a higher level mission than the other. So if you're looking to gain reputation, you can kind of tell based off of now the first couple words. It'll say like small grade, supply grade. Like you'll get those from that Star Citizen Live graph. I think it's still probably going to be confusing to players for a little while until they learn them. But yeah. So they're trying to make an effort to, since they clearly don't have a filtering system, help players filter.
Then from point B to point C quickly without having to do all this comparison research. The next quality of life update would be in the loading unloading process. I picked a ship that had a built-in tractor beam because I really like the idea of being able to unload entirely from the cockpit without having to leave the seat of my ship. Unfortunately, we're not even close to that being a gameplay loop yet. Firstly, the tractor beams on ships do work, but they're very awkward at the moment. Pulling and pushing and scrolling and overshooting your target, the latency with aiming is really just not fun to use. It's much easier to just get out of your ship on foot with a tractor beam combined with your WASD movement controls. It's just more enjoyable to do it that way.
I mentioned this before. The actual wow, my words today, I'm really not functioning today. I don't know what's going on. The tractor beam, ship tractor beam, I think should just be WASD movement. Like W to go forward, AS and D, like, and just, I think it'll be more precise then.
Secondly, even if you do load everything onto the delivery platform from your spaceship, well, you still have to manually go over to the platform and then lower it and then transfer the cargo.
So you might as well just be outside anyway. Or arrow keys. Yeah, it's not a bad choice.
On the UI to finish the mission.
But this is the big problem with it is if I still have to get out anyway and the tractor beams that we have are handheld do the job, just fuck it. I'll get out.
It'd be really nice if they could automate this process and have the platform just detect when you have the correct cargo loaded and then just complete the mission from that point. In fact, always having to unload makes it feel less like a trucking job.
I mean, guys, in the 80s, I was born in the 80s and we had an automatic garage door opener and closer. The 1980s.
Been more of a couch delivery type job. You have to drive to the location and deliver stuff up a flight of stairs, where I'd much rather
it should be an MFD on our ship.
Focus on the driving part. And with the contract jobs, at least for the time being, you have to manually unload everything. There's no convenient drop your trailer here and move on to the next mission type gameplay. It's tractor beam out about 60 to 20 boxes, load them somewhere, and then move on. Some people are going to love this.
Basically a fossil. Are you calling me old?
Some people are going to hate it. I'm a little bit in the middle, but it's not quite the trucking dream I had imagined for Star Citizen. Now, sadly, the missions themselves are pretty devoid.
Again, to go back to what I said before, the trucking dream to me is taking a few missions that don't entirely fill my ship because the rest of it I can fill doing commodity trading. Or commodity trading, period, is still the trucking dream. These are little side things to gain rep, to get better cargo loading timers, to get better, maybe more storage at your freight elevator or at certain stations, skins, clothing, armor, better tractor beams, better batteries, that kind of stuff. It's questing in an MMO. What we do on the sandbox side, hopefully this work enables that at some point. That's how I see this. And that's why I don't have any problems with this at all. As long as this is the questing, where we gain rewards and things that players may want that are more functional for the sandbox, then I'm fine with that. But
void of, well, anything interesting. There's no NPCs to receive the cargo at the destination, nobody to direct you where to put stuff, or
I never thought of that. No NPCs at the destination to be like, oh man, thanks. Really
make idle chit chat about what this cargo is being used for. This type of set dressing NPC stuff could really be used to make the world feel alive, and at the moment it's just stark and empty. The descriptions of the missions are really basic. There's no voiceover lines for anything in them, or NPC interactions at all for that matter. And as far as I can tell, the hauling missions don't evolve into more dangerous or interesting missions. I was hoping for something that would let you choose between a really basic, low cost, low risk mission and one that says, hey, we need this cargo, but you got to fly through an asteroid field and there's pirates, so now you got to dodge and worry about combat at the same time. Something to increase the...
He hasn't been to Brio's Breaker Yard yet. I couldn't complete a mission there because I was getting attacked.
Price and the interesting aspect of that mission, but at the moment it just seems super, super basic. Again, a good starting point, but like the rest of CIG's Tier 0 rollouts for their features, they can feel quite whelming. Now, something I haven't played around with yet is that cargo grids on spaceships will lock items into place now. So seats, vehicles, any items you could find, could be a fish tank actually. I'm sure some funny gameplay will come from this, especially...
Yeah, I mean, like, this is the sandbox stuff that is kind of cool. I think... This is a really good point, is the functionality of the hangar is better on ship cargo grids than in the hangar itself. The thing that was supposed to happen to the hangars happens better in your ship cargo grid now. So like stuff like this, like you can make a C2 like an org, meeting room or whatever, right? So
Actually, with the ships that have exterior cargo grids,
which is
people
actually
could
kind
be
of cool.
sitting in seats on the outside of a ship flying around, which I'm sure will happen soon. Anyway, patch 3.24 is going to be a weird update. If you like hauling, and I do like hauling, there's actually now gameplay and a progression tree, and things get more expensive and bigger, and that's cool. The persistent hangars are neat at best, more silly than functional at the moment, and item management is about to get a lot more cumbersome than it already is. I fear, especially with the basic stuff like inventory, the learning curve for new players is just going to get more unpleasant than I'm sure it already is. And it'll also serve to bog down veteran players who feel like they're just being held back by unnecessary time sinks in between the actual gameplay. Granted, this is a controversial topic, and I know some people are for it and against it. I'd actually be curious to hear what your thoughts are.
I don't think anybody is for the item banks. Have you guys seen anyone defend this? That was outside of the absolute copium huffing people. I've not seen anybody defend item banks. Everything else has a defense to it. Even if it's a weak one, they have defense. This has none.
On this whole sim everything approach to Star Citizen. Have they gone too far with some of this UI stuff and inventory management, or do you think it'll add additional value and meaning to the world when it takes a lot of time to do anything? Let me know in the comments, and up next, check out this game that takes advantage of a HOSAS dual joystick system.
Great game.
That is also a fantastic space sim that I've been playing a lot while I wait for, well, Star Citizen to do interesting stuff. As always, guys, thank you so much.
Oh, you're going to need to find about 3 more games, Level.
So much for watching, and I'll see you next time. This is Level Cap signing off.
That was good. So, yeah, I think I agree with a lot, and there's some things that maybe I disagreed a little bit with him, and I think that there was a lot of ideas to piggyback off of. My biggest gripe for this game right now is the actual hangar pad. Outside of that, I think most things are survivable, savable, somewhat simply. But yeah, we'll have to see. But yeah, this is not 324, man. It's 323.2, and I'm not surprised that this is the level of content that's coming in. But again, for me, I am way more for getting stuff in, getting it functional, and then making it fun. So hopefully in the future, things are a little bit better. But underwhelming hangars, cargo missions that I like, but what happened to commodity trading? And yeah, let's take a look at those actual ship spawning, please.